Found this candy under another teacher's desk here. I guess my superego is not working real well because I'm taking her candy. I'm tired from shooting all these videos. I'm going to have myself a piece of chocolate. Wonderful, crunchy chocolate. In behavior, in behavior. All right, sorry. We're doing a conclusion to this series today. And if you'll think back all the things we covered this semester on the videotape, I'd like to remind you of that and then come to a concluding remark. If I don't choke myself on my ill-begotten source of candy here. If you remember the first of the course, let's just kind of go through all these things. We're talking about human behavior, and human behavior is complex. It's absolutely fascinating, and it's difficult to understand. But I think if you apply all these, that you'll really be a step ahead in understanding human behavior. Let's start with Joey. Remember the story about the kid who was struck by lightning, and we looked at biological aspects and what he was thinking, and then the fact of how his parents had treated him and so forth, and the guy who was tapping on his arm. The caffeine study. Again, we looked at biological aspects of the effect of caffeine, and we looked at the effects on anxiety, hostility, and depression. The Phantom Lake study by Ramachandran. In fact, I misspelled that, I think, at the time, so it's Ramachandran. I think I had that all the way right except for the N on the end. Ramachandran, the medical doctor, the neurologist, who explained the phantom limb where the guy was having orgasms that were 10 times more powerful than his missing leg. But this is powerful stuff that we might have thought that guy is crazy in the past, but there was a real biological explanation. We went into the physical basis of why ecstasy works, how it's similar to Prozac, and we talked about how cocaine works on the neurological level. Remember the synapse. And we did little Albert, the poor little kid that had the startle response and was scared of white rabbits and white rats. So you're kind of getting a good flavor of the overview. Another practical one, we looked at Elizabeth Loftus's research on why eyewitness testimony is so often wrong. We even looked at 7 witnesses who swore that a priest had committed these robberies and turned out not to be him at all. And we looked into the reasons that memory can be so open to fallibility and how it's emotionally tinged. Then we looked at Sternberg's ideas on intelligence, emphasizing that intelligence is not only the analytical or the academic, but it's also the practical, the creative, things that obviously make common sense in everyday life. Got Sternberg again in the next tape, and we looked at love. Sternberg's idea that we have 3 aspects of love, and 2 of those 3 usually take a great deal of work for a relationship to work. We had passion, that falling in love. We had the working at emotional intimacy. And then what was the third one? Commitment, working, just saying, my God, I'm going to make this work. And those 3 things together creating a more stable relationship. We had Piaget's information on cognitive development and how your children and my children and our brothers and sisters think differently at a young age than they think as an adult. And went through the details of that. We just finished taping this information about Sigmund Freud and his incredibly insightful theory about human behavior that translated into a therapy that I frankly don't think is very practical. We take the good things and the bad things. Pointed out that in a thinker as complex as Freud, that you can't just say I agree or disagree, but rather let's look at some of his ideas and say whether we agree or disagree and explain why. Let's look at other of his ideas and explain why we agree or disagree. The psychosexual stages of development, for example, in Freud. Then we looked at a student 2 generations down, Albert Ellis, who's now the psychologist of the century, according to the APA, American Psychological Association, and he developed this rational emotive therapy that basically said, you know, Freud makes a lot of sense maybe in terms of cause, but doesn't it create a lot of whiners? Don't we need to start being more self-reliant and taking our lives and saying, I don't care what happened in my childhood, I'm going to make a good life now, come hell or high water? And made the statement from Epictetus, the Greek philosopher 2,000 years ago, that it's not the bad things that happen to you in life that will make you unhappy. It's your reactions to those things that will make you happy or unhappy. Let me repeat that because that's so profound. And they knew it 2,000 years before modern science, and basically. It's not the bad things that happen to you in life that will make you unhappy. It's what you react to, how you react to those things, what you do about them, how you deal with them that will make you happy or unhappy. And then finally, we looked at a social psychologist, Dion, who studied the effects of beauty. Were good-looking kids treated better than not good-looking kids? 2 out of her 3 hypotheses were found to be true. And that resulted in the practical impact upon the school system of training teachers to try to look at their biases against kids who might not be attractive to them and try to deal with them fairly so that they get a good chance of life. So we've really got a lot of stuff and kind of fascinating stuff here. And what's it boil down to? Let's make sure we can get this all in the picture. If you look at what's in common with all of these particular things, there are 3 things we started the course with and 3 things we'll end the course with. When we're trying to understand human behavior, we look at the biological. Think of all the times we've looked at biological causes: Caffeine Study, Phantom Leg, Ecstasy and cocaine, classical conditioning, etc. We look at the intrapsychic. In other words, what's he thinking? What's this person thinking? What's going on inside their head? What are they telling themselves? In a very practical application of that, as one example, is Albert Ellis's rational emotive therapy. What are we telling ourselves about our situation that's making things better, over catastrophizing them, or making them worse? And then finally, much of what we dealt with had a social behavioral component, the environment. What's going on in the family? And a lot of social workers tend to forget this, and psychologists, and look at the individual, when in fact what they need to look at is the context. It may not do you a whole lot of good to change the individual and to go back to the same social behavioral context. So when we look at psychology, let's remember the backbone: biological, intrapsychic, and social behavioral. I hope you've learned a lot and tried to apply this stuff to your practical life. And it's been great working with you. Thanks.